At my daughter's wedding, the groom smeared cake on my face and called it charity. Someone asked, "Do you have any idea who that is?" He learned it the hard way, when all his cards failed and everything shut. My name is Thomas Avery. I'm 71 years old, a grandfather, and until last spring I ran a community bank the old-fashioned way. Handwritten notes, clean books, and a handshake that meant something. People call me careful. They also call me stubborn. Both are true. I buried my wife 3 years ago. Since then, I have tried to keep close to my daughter Caroline, even when the closeness felt one-sided. I still show up. I still try. I tell myself that is what a father does, even when it stings. I arrived at the reception hall late on purpose. I parked at the far end of the lot and pulled on my old workman's coat and a blue cap with frayed seams. It was a small trick. Caroline had made a point during the rehearsal dinner to say, "Dad, please do not mess up the aesthetic." She meant my suit was too dark and my tie was dated. She meant I make her nervous. I did not want to fight. I wanted to watch her smile. Inside, the lights were warm and the music soft. The hall smelled like buttercream and roses. I stood near the kitchen doors, out of the photos and out of the way. I could see the head table, the gold menu cards, the tall glasses waiting for toasts. I could also see that my name card was missing. The table where they seated extended family had a blank gap where mine should have been. Someone had taken the place card down or never printed it. I folded that small fact and put it in my pocket with my hands. A waiter offered me water from a tray. I took it and gripped the glass, grateful for something to hold. I told myself this was Caroline's day, not mine. I would be silent and kind. I would leave before the final dance and say I was tired. That was safe. That kept peace. Across the room, the groom, Nolan, laughed with his groomsmen near the dessert table. He had the stride of a man who had never been told no. He wore a white jacket and a grin that could cut. Caroline floated beside him, thin and bright, with her hair up and her eyes hard whenever they slid past my corner. She pretended not to see me. Maybe she hoped I would pretend not to see her. I set my cap brim low and stepped farther back. The kitchen door swung and bumped my shoulder. A young cook apologized, then stared at me like I might ask for leftovers. It landed like a pebble in my chest, small but sharp. I breathed in, slow. I looked at my hands, old and steady, and rubbed a smear of machine oil I had never gotten out of that coat cuff. I had worn that coat the winter I finished the bank's new branch. I had signed 1,000 forms in it. It reminded me of work that meant something. Tonight it would be a disguise. If I was invisible, I could watch my daughter's first dance without drawing fire. I told myself this was wisdom. Maybe it was fear. From the head table, Caroline raised a glass and laughed at something Nolan whispered. For a second I saw my little girl holding a paper crown at a birthday party, frosting on her chin, looking for me. Then the band picked up and the vision faded. I stayed in the shadow of the kitchen doors and chose silence. Back then, I accepted being invisible to keep peace. They rolled out the cake to applause. 4 tiers, white on white, flowers winding up the side. The photographer started directing bodies. "You stand here, you cross arms, you feed each other," he said. Nolan didn't need coaching. He performed. He kissed Caroline's cheek for the camera, then turned to his friends and winked. They cut. They pressed neat bites to each other's lips. Everyone cheered. Caroline dabbed at her dress with a napkin. Nolan glanced around like he wanted an encore. He saw me by the kitchen doors and grinned. He scooped a fist of cake and walked straight toward me. "Hey," he said, loud enough for his table to hear. "For the local hobo. Welcome to the party." Before I could step away, he smeared the cake across my face. Frosting went cold on my nose and into my mustache. A sweet smell filled my eyes. Laughter broke around us like a wave. Someone hooted. Someone else clapped. Nolan bowed as if he had done charity. I stood there, still. My cheeks burned, but not from the sugar. I reached for the linen napkin in my pocket. I had taken it earlier to keep my hands from shaking. I wiped my face once, twice, careful not to make a scene. The napkin came away streaked white. I looked down at it so I would not look at him. Nolan leaned in close. "Don't worry, old-timer," he said. "There's plenty of cake left." His friends laughed harder. One of them filmed with his phone. The lens felt like a thumb pressed into my throat. I heard a voice from near the band. A cousin of mine, Henry, who had not recognized me until now. His chair scraped back hard. "Do you have any idea who that is?" The laughter flickered. A few heads turned. Nolan's smile tightened, then widened again. He shrugged. "Yeah," he said. "The help." Caroline stood a few steps behind him, watching. She didn't move. She didn't stop him. She pressed her lips into a flat line and looked past me like I was a piece of staging that had gone wrong. I folded the napkin and slid it back into my coat pocket. I made my face calm. I made my body still. Inside, something old and careful shifted in me, like a key turning in a lock. I could feel my heart beat in the frosting on my skin. The band started the next song. People moved back to their seats. The moment was over for them. It was not over for me. I stepped away from the door and into a side hallway with low light and a row of stacked chairs. My hand shook again, and I pressed my thumb to the pulse at my wrist until it steadied. I needed water. I needed a minute. Caroline followed me. Her dress swished on the tile. She did not touch me. She stared at my coat like it offended her. "Dad," she said in a hiss. "What are you doing?" "Watching your wedding," I said. "From the kitchen?" She glanced over her shoulder. "If you're going to be here, at least try not to draw attention." "I didn't draw it," I said. My voice stayed level. "It came on its own." She ignored that. "You promised you wouldn't make this about you. Nolan's family is here. His clients are here. He has investors watching investors," I repeated. I let the words sit. It tasted like something metal. "You should have called before coming," she said. "We could have found a place for you at the back." "I did call," I said. "Twice?" "You didn't answer." She looked down at her bouquet and adjusted a stem that did not need adjusting. "It's been a busy week." "Busy enough to forget I exist?" She sighed hard, the way she used to when homework frustrated her. "Do not do this," she said. "Not tonight." I looked at her face, at the hard line of her mouth, at the cold flash in her eyes. I tried to find the girl who once fell asleep in my lap, gum stuck in her hair, trusting me to fix it without hurting her. I could not find her. "You let him do that," I said quietly. "He was trying to be funny." "Was he?" She lifted her chin. "If you didn't want attention, you shouldn't have dressed like that. You know how I feel about appearances." She pulled at a smudge of cake on her glove with a tight, fast motion. "You are making people uncomfortable. Please, just stay out of the center." "Out of the center," I said. "Yes," she said, "for once." I looked at her. I looked at the hall, at the stacked chairs, at the coat on my shoulders that had carried me through winters and long days and 1,000 small, honest jobs. I looked at my daughter, who could not look at me without shame. There are moments when the floor under a man moves. Not far. Just enough to tell him he cannot stand in the same place anymore. This was one of those moments. I stepped back into the shadow. "All right," I said. "I'll stay out of the center." Her shoulders loosened a shade. "Thank you." She turned to go. I watched her walk away, tall and thin and beautiful and far from me. I wiped my face again with the same napkin. The frosting was sticky now. It held to my skin like a reminder. I wondered, not for the first time, when she started caring more about rooms full of strangers than the man who taught her to ride a bike. I saw how far she had moved from me. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket. Once. Twice. Then again. It was the bank's fraud system. I know those sounds the way a sailor knows a foghorn. I pulled the phone out and wiped the screen clean with the corner of the napkin. 3 alerts sat stacked on the lock screen. Card not present attempt. Daily limit ping. Transfer flagged. The timestamps lined up in a neat little row. 1 during last night's rehearsal dinner. 2 within the last hour. Someone had tried my debit card number for a streaming service I do not use. Someone had attempted a transfer from my retirement account to an online wallet I did not recognize. Someone had tested a new payee with a $1 verification that failed. I opened the bank app. I moved through it by muscle memory. The device ID on the attempt matched a phone registered to a contact name that was not mine. I did not need to know the name to feel what it meant. I knew the shape of this kind of theft. Start small. Check the seams. If the line holds, cut deeper. My palms went dry. The music in the other room felt far away, like it was coming through water. I stood very still and scrolled. I screenshot the alerts and the device trail and saved them. Then I checked the login history on my account. I was still signed in here. Another login had tried and failed 3 times from an IP that mapped to a cheap hotel near the venue. My mind did what it always does. It sorted. It made lines. Who had my numbers? Who had my phone when I set it down at the rehearsal dinner? Who took a picture with me and asked me to hold a glass while they fixed lighting? Who needed money today? Nolan's voice from the hall last night rose up, laughing about buying half of downtown when the right cash came through. Caroline's text from last week, blunt and cold, asking for my account info to help with a vendor. I had refused. She had not spoken to me for 2 days after that. The pattern was not hard. It never is when you already know the people. I breathed out and steadied my hands. I took one more screenshot for my records. I put the phone back in my pocket. My fingers brushed the folded napkin, still wet with cake. Frosting and fraud lived there together. It almost made sense. From the hall came a cheer. The DJ called for everyone to raise their glasses. I did not move. Someone had been testing the locks on my life. They thought the door would give if they pushed long enough. They thought I was too old to feel the pressure. They thought wrong. Now I had the first proof in my hand. I ducked back into the coat room. It smelled like starch and dust. I closed the door with my shoulder and pressed my phone to my ear. Frosting still tugged at the skin under my nose. I kept my voice low. "Fraud desk," the operator said. "This is Thomas Avery," I said. "Director code 427. I gave the PIN I had not used since I stepped down. It still opened doors. It always had. There was a pause, then a change in tone. "Yes, sir." "How can we help?" "Emergency block," I said. "Card attempts against my accounts. Same device is almost certainly tied to a merchant account for a man named Nolan Wade. He's standing in a tux 2 rooms over calling me a hobo. I need him quiet." Old habit took over. I listed the times. I gave them the last 4 digits. Then I sent the screenshots. My hands were steady now. "Sir, we can flag and monitor, but—" "Do not monitor," I said. "Block. It's identity theft and it's active. Put a hold on my cards. Put a hold on his merchant payouts. You have cause from the failed attempts. If you need a name, mine is cause." The line went silent for a second. I heard keys. I heard a low whistle. "Understood," she said. "I'm looping in security. Maya is on." One moment, Maya came on like a bell. "Mr. Avery, I see the pattern. I can place a temporary freeze on the merchant account tied to Wade Consulting. 90 minutes while we verify." "Make it now," I said, "and watch the venue's processor. He is paying vendors here. He won't pay them with my money." "Yes, sir." I knew I was leaning on my name. I knew I was stepping past the polite line. I did not care. I had watched too many good people get eaten by delay while thieves smiled for cameras. "Anything else?" Maya asked. "Text me confirmations," I said. "When the decline hits, it will hit fast." I hung up. I pressed the napkin to my face one more time and slid it back into my pocket. I breathed out and told myself to walk slowly. Calm wins most fights. When I opened the door to the hall, the first decline alert buzzed my phone like a wasp. I stepped into the light. The music kept time. The clink of glasses sounded normal. But the pretty surface had cracks now, and the cracks were about to show. At the bar, Nolan waved a platinum card like a flag. "Open tab," he said. "Top shelf for the table." The bartender ran it. The screen went red. He tried again. Red again. His eyebrows climbed. "Sir, do you have another card?" Nolan laughed, loud and breezy. He handed over a black card. "Try that." Declined. A low murmur ran along the bar like a draft. The bartender looked over at the manager. The manager started across the room with a clipboard and the smile people wear when they need money right now. At the photographer's table, I heard the same beat. "Final payment is due by end of night," the woman said. "Our system can't run your card." She was polite. She was firm. She had seen this before. I stood where I could see Nolan and the manager speak. My coat hung heavy. The napkin in my pocket stuck to my hand. I kept my face blank. "Sir," the manager said, soft but clear, "we'll need a valid card for the bar and the venue balance." Nolan's smile tightened. He handed over a third card. Declined. Caroline touched his arm. "It's fine," she said. "It's a machine thing." "It's not fine," he hissed. The mask slipped for half a second. I saw the man under it, impatient, entitled, afraid of the first real no in his life. My phone buzzed again. Another decline. Another. The pattern was clean. I let it buzz. I let the sound paint the room in little silent strokes only I could feel. I remembered the first time I showed Caroline a checkbook. She was 12. We sat at the kitchen table with cookies and milk. She made her first deposit with both hands, careful as if the paper might break. She looked at me then like I had given her a key to the world. She did not look at me like that now. The manager gestured toward the office door. "We can talk privately," he said. Nolan's gaze slid across the room and landed on me. He did not know me. He only knew a man in a shabby coat who was watching. He glared like I had jinxed him. My phone buzzed once more. I lifted my chin. The room began to turn. This was the first sight of my revenge. Soon I'm going to flip not only this room, but their lives upside down. But before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. Nolan pulled Caroline toward the office. Their perfect steps went crooked. The crowd pretended not to stare. I drifted a few feet closer and listened to the voices rise behind the thin door. "Text him," Nolan said. "He can fix this." "Fix what?" Caroline's tone was sharp. "A little glitch? We don't need... Text your father for bridge money now. Tell him it's for a vendor. He'll send it. He always does." I felt the old anger, heavy and slow. I thought of the times I had written checks for her school, for her car, for her first apartment when a job fell through. I thought of how many times I had said yes. I thought of how those yeses had turned into something ugly in her mind. A lever, a habit, silence. Then keys tapping. Then her voice, low. "He won't send it to me." He changed after Mom died. I leaned back against the wall. My chest hurt, but not from age. From the way she said changed like it was a crime. "Then send from his account," Nolan snapped. "You had the numbers." "You told me you did." "I had enough," she said. "We only moved what he doesn't use." The words hit me like a small, clean hammer. Plain, cold, final. We only moved what he doesn't use. A younger Caroline flickered in my mind. She was 8, and she had taken loose bills from Sarah's purse to buy candy. She had come to us shaking, the bills crumpled in her fist. We had taught her then about right and wrong, about trust, about asking. She cried until she hiccuped. She said she would never take again. I stood in the hall and listened to the adult version explain theft in a sentence that made it sound neat. "Try again," Nolan hissed. "Try a different app. Try the one you showed me, it's not working. Then go ask him." She opened the door fast. She nearly crashed into me. Her face went white, then flushed dark. "Dad?" she said. "Caroline," I said. She looked at my coat, at the napkin, at my eyes. Then she tried a smile that did not fit. "There's a little mix-up with the system. Can you—" "I heard you," I said. "You moved what I don't use." She swallowed. "It's not like that." "It is exactly like that," I said. My voice stayed even. "And I am using it now." Her mouth opened, then shut. She turned to Nolan. He gestured, impatient and small. Now I knew. Not theory, not gut. Fact. They were together in it. Nolan came out of the office like a man rushing a stage. He stopped inches from me. He still did not see me. He saw a problem shaped like a person. "You," he said. "You're in the way." Move. I did not move. "Do you know who I am?" he said. "Yes," I said. He waved at my coat. "Do you want to be useful? Go tell the bar we're good and stop spreading whatever—" "Your night failed on its own," I said. I felt tired down to the bone, but my voice came out clean. His eyes went sharp. He looked over my shoulder. He looked back at me. He was doing the math of where his power ended. For the first time, he did not like the answer. The band leader stepped closer, setting his guitar down. Henry, my cousin, stood up from his chair and pointed. "Do you have any idea who that is?" he said to Nolan, louder this time. Eyes began to turn again. Heads lifted. Phones paused. Caroline stood between us, breathing fast. Her bouquet shook. She did not defend me. She did not defend him. She looked like a person who had realized a story was not going the way she wrote it. Nolan lowered his voice. "You made a mistake," he said. "I did," I said. "I thought you loved my daughter." He blinked. "What?" I took the napkin from my pocket. I unfolded it. The white streaks had gone gray. I wiped the last of the frosting from my mustache and folded the cloth again. I slid it back into my pocket beside the phone that was still buzzing with declines. "That mistake is fixed," I said. The room went quiet around the edges. People leaned in without moving. Even the DJ looked our way, hand frozen over a fader. I stepped into the shadow by the office door and wiped the last tacky smear of frosting from under my nose. The napkin went back into my coat, stiff now, a small white flag I had never raised. I called another employee. My voice felt like an old gear engaging. Everything tied to Wade Consulting and the shells it fed. Same naming pattern, same routing style. Stop the money and hold the rest. That will make noise. Good. I hung up and waited. The first decline came like a tap on the shoulder, then another. Then the cascade hit the room. At the bar, Nolan held court with his cards and a fan. Declined. He laughed like it was cute. Declined again. The bartender glanced at the manager. The manager walked across the floor with a practiced smile that said, "I can help, if you help me." The black card failed, then the titanium one. The bartender flipped a small sign to cash only. It looked like a hand turning off a light. Vendors started checking screens. The photographer took her camera off the strap and set it in the bag like she might leave early. The florist's runner walked in with an invoice and left with it still in her hand. The venue's speaker coughed, then went silent. The DJ lifted a palm and said they needed just a moment, which is how people say brace yourselves without stirring panic. I stood in plain sight now. No cap brim. Still the coat. The napkin in my pocket felt like a receipt for everything said and done tonight. I thought of Sarah in our first house, making coffee on Sunday mornings, counting coins in a jelly jar, kissing Caroline's fingers because she had counted with us and called it grown-up math. We had less then, but we were never small. We were not small now. We were right. Across the floor, eyes sharpened. Who pulled the plug? Who owned the switch? The room didn't know yet. Nolan did not either. His smile had gone flat and bright like a light before it dies. The band stopped mid-verse. Glasses hovered halfway to lips. 100 guests turned, expecting someone, anyone, to fix it. They were about to learn how little of this night had been built on anything real. The bar closed, the music stopped, and I was the last man remaining there with a big smile. In a few minutes, the door clicked shut behind me. I set my phone face down on the desk and let my hands rest on either side of it. Even now, stillness helped. Caroline slid in through the side door. Her bouquet stems were crushed in her grip. She did not sit. Undo this. No. You're ruining my wedding. You started that last night. Her mouth opened, then closed. The old flinch came and went, my girl for a half second. Then the woman who had decided I was an obstacle, not a father. You owe me. I raised you. Her eyes flicked to the manager, to the printer, to my phone. A small sound caught in her throat. She took a breath like a diver. If you do not fix this, you will never see your granddaughter again. There it was, hard and practiced, a line meant to cut. It did not miss its mark. It also did not move it. At Christmas, she danced on my shoes, I said, while you tried to empty my accounts. A flush rose on her neck. Not shame. Anger at being seen. Outside the door, voices climbed. Nolan's rose above them, sharp and brittle. He wanted a villain he could hit. He wanted me to be a weak old man he could shove aside. I let the thought pass like a bad smell. I looked at Caroline and saw 2 lives. One with Sarah's hand at her back, steadying. One with Nolan's hand on her elbow, steering. The second had eaten the first. I nodded at the manager. You'll get questions about payment. Do not release anything without cash in hand. He understood. He did not need a lecture. He needed a decision. He had it. Caroline stared like I'd lit a match on a dry field. There was a time when she trusted me to put the match out. Now she feared I'd let it burn. A heavy knock hit the door. Not staff, not polite. The next knock, I said, won't be a waiter. The manager slid a stack of receipts across the desk and set the wedding program beside them. Names, balances, dates. I took photos with steady hands. After 2 more minutes, the bank got all information it needed to reconfirm the case. Affiliates were frozen. Caroline watched as if waiting for me to tire. I remembered the old kitchen table, the checkbook. The first time she wrote in neat block letters and asked if there was enough for a school trip. We said yes and skipped dinner out for a month. She glowed with gratitude then. Now she stared at me like I was hoarding oxygen. You want to humiliate us. I want you to stop stealing. The words hung there, simple and not negotiable. Nolan filled the doorway, tie loose, face drained of its salesman's shine. He grabbed my lapel. The old coat bunched. The cap slid to the floor. I let it go. I'm Thomas Avery, I said. I ran the bank that just shut you down. He blinked like someone had slapped him with water. You can't do this. I already did. He looked to Caroline for rescue. She had none to give. She had used her last rope on me, and I had set it down. He shouldered past the manager and stabbed a card into the office terminal. The machine chirped and printed a thin slip. Declined. He tried another. Declined. His eyes went to the bar, to the DJ, to the door where guests were stacking up with phones and frowns. He was a man watching a house of mirrors collapse, and seeing, for the first time, that every face was his. I picked up the fallen cap and set it on the desk beside the neat pile of receipts and the folded program. I spoke quietly, the way I did in my office when a bad actor thought bluff could beat numbers. "I regret one thing," I said, "that my daughter chose you." He swallowed, jaw shaking. The room on the other side of the door felt like a held breath. He backed up one step, then another. Rage wanted to come. Fear held it down. Behind him, the bartender flipped the cash-only sign so it faced the crowd. The DJ set the mic down. The music would not save him. Power was no longer a question. I stepped back into the hallway and leaned against the cool plaster. The coat felt heavy on my shoulders. The napkin had dried into a stiff square in my pocket. I could feel its edge with every breath. The room outside swelled and dipped, a crowd trying to pretend a party could run without the engine of payment. It could not. My phone buzzed. Maya again. Short texts, clean as a hammer. Shells tied to Riverbend giving. Fake charity intake. Debt relief pages scraping numbers. Affiliate IDs overlap. Victims likely. I stared at the screen until the words steadied. I had seen this pattern too many times. People at their lowest. People who believed in help. People who got stripped clean and told it was their fault. I thought of Sarah reading church bulletins at our kitchen table, circling small needs with a pen. We never had much to give then, but we gave it. We did not take. That was the line. It was still the line. I called our police liaison. I had not used that number since I retired. My finger knew it anyway. "Fraud in progress," I said. "Identity and merchant. I have the subject on site. Active attempts, failed now. Shells behind him. Our preliminary holds are up. You will not leave empty-handed." He asked for 3 facts. I gave him 5. He said they were on their way. I slid the phone back into my pocket with the napkin and the folded program. Paper and plastic and proof. A small stack that told a story I wished I did not have to tell. Out in the hall, the vendors had started to pack up without being told. The photographer closed her bag with a neat zip. The florist's runner wrapped leftover stems with a rubber band and set them aside, careful hands that knew waste when they saw it. The bartender had left the cash-only sign faced out. People stared at it like it was in a different language. Nolan moved through the room with a bright, empty smile. He told a joke too loudly. He clapped a guest on the back too hard. He took out a handful of cash and tried to pass it off as control. The room saw the act. They always do when the music dies. Caroline stood near the head table with her bouquet at her side. The flowers were starting to brown at the edges where her grip had crushed them. She watched me. There was nothing pleading in her stare now, only calculation and the first shape of fear. She was counting her exits. She was counting me as one. I had been an exit for her whole life. Tonight, I was a door she could not open. I remembered teaching her to balance on a 2-wheeler, my hand at the small of her back, my running shoes slapping the pavement, her hair in her eyes, her laugh ringing out when she finally rode on her own. I let go, and she didn't fall. I had been proud then of how fast she learned. I had not planned for her to learn the wrong things faster. Maya's last text came in. "Police inbound, hold steady." I straightened my coat and walked back into the light. My steps felt slow and sure. The manager met my eyes and gave a tiny nod. The DJ stood with his hands on the mixer and did not move. The band was silent. The cake leaned where it had been cut, the missing piece a gap that looked bigger than it was. The doors opened. 2 officers and a detective stepped in. The room changed shape in an instant. Noise turned into air. Eyes turned into lenses. Nolan's face went pale and flat. It was time for my retribution. The officers spoke with the manager first. Quiet, clean exchange. The detective looked across the room and found me without being told. I had that face. The man you bring the paper to. The man who brings paper back. I handed him the program, the receipts, and my phone with the screenshots ready. He read fast. He did not ask for a speech. He did not need one. He nodded at my coat pocket. More? Names, I said. Shells. The charity that isn't one. He glanced at Caroline, who stood like a statue with a dead bouquet. He glanced at Nolan, who laughed too loud again. They crossed the floor. The room made space the way water makes space for a stone. Phones lifted. Even the children went quiet. Nolan Wade, the detective said. We need to speak with you. Nolan turned on his heel. You need to speak with my lawyer. Good idea, the detective said. Call him after we're done. This is a wedding, he said, spreading his hands like a magician who had lost his deck. This is an active fraud, the detective said. They asked him to step aside. He tried to walk toward the door. One officer moved, not fast, just right, and the path closed. The second officer's hand rested near his belt. Calm, not a threat, just the reality of what came next. The detective kept his voice low. We have identity theft attempts in progress. Merchant funds flagged, shells connected to your business. You will come with us. Nolan tried one last smile. It cracked. You can't prove. That's what today is for, the detective said. Caroline moved one step toward him, then stopped. She looked at me. She did not ask me to stop them. She did not ask anything at all. Her mouth trembled and set again. She understood what she had traded. She understood the cost. The officer took Nolan's wrists. The sound of the cuffs was small and clear. The room exhaled. Someone whispered, "Oh my God," like prayer and gossip all at once. The bandleader set his guitar on its stand. Nolan searched the crowd for a friendly face and found phones instead. He met my eyes. He tried for bravado and found nothing in his chest to lift it. You'll pay, he said. I did not answer. There were no more lines to give him. Only the road he had chosen to walk, and the people whose job it was to make sure he stayed on it. They led him toward the door. The manager stood aside. The cash-only sign faced a room with no cash. The cake leaned. The flowers drooped. The pretty things that had been bought on promises did what pretty things do when the promises fail. They sag. The detective paused by me. We'll need a statement. You'll have it by morning, I said. He nodded once. We'll also hit his office. Check the back closet, I said, behind the glass door cabinet. He raised an eyebrow. You've seen it? I know his kind, I said. They hide in plain sight. He left with Nolan and the two officers. The room watched the door close. No one clapped. No one said congratulations. The silence was a weight you could stack plates on. Caroline sat down hard in a chair that was too delicate for the drop. Her bouquet fell to the floor, petals scattered and stuck to the damp on her dress. She stared at them like the mess was the offense. The band did not start again. The party was over. It had never really started. I drove home in the old sedan with the coat collar turned up against the night. The napkin on the seat beside me had dried into a hard square. I did not throw it away. I did not know why. Maybe because it told the truth better than speeches. Maybe because I needed something I could hold that said I was not crazy. The porch light was on. Sarah's little rule. A home should not greet you in darkness. I unlocked the door and put the program and receipts into the top drawer of my desk. I poured coffee and sat at the kitchen table. My hands remembered the groove where a hot mug had sat every morning for 40 years. The house hummed its quiet hum. Headlights swung across the wall, tires on gravel, a door closed, footsteps on the walk. The bell rang once. I opened the door halfway. Caroline stood there in a sweater that did not belong to her. Her hair was down now. The makeup around her eyes had smudged. She looked older than she had this morning. She looked young enough to need a hand. She was both. She had always been both. She did not step forward. She did not ask to come in. She held the rail and picked at a splinter in the wood like it might answer her. "Help him," she said. "No." "He loves me." "Love does not take," I said. "It asks." Her jaw trembled. She stopped it by biting the inside of her cheek, a trick she had learned as a teenager when she refused to cry on anyone's terms. "He'll go to prison," she said. "Maybe," I said. "You can stop it." "I can tell the truth faster than he can lie," I said. "That is all I will do." She looked past me at the hall where the family photos hung. Sarah's face, my face, Caroline's face at different ages. She did not step closer to them. She kept her hands on the rail as if she needed to hold on to something that was not me. "You left me," she said, soft now, "after Mom." "I lost her," I said. "I did not leave you." "You were always at the bank." "I brought the bank home," I said, "so we could eat." We stood in that thin air for a long half-minute. Years pressed between us. Good ones, bad ones, the ones we remembered differently. "I'll make you one offer," I said. "You return what you took. You make a statement. You tell the truth about the accounts and the apps and the names. You do that, and I will meet you for coffee every Sunday. I will be there when you want to talk and when you do not. I will be your father, but not your wallet, not your shield." She stared down at her hands. A tear landed on the railing and spread into a dark dot. She watched it like she could will it back into her eye. "And if I don't?" she asked. "Then you do not come back," I said. "Not until you can stand on your own and look me in the face." A small sound left her throat, not a sob, something older. She nodded once without looking up. "I'll think about it," she said. "You'll decide," I said. She turned away. The night took her. The car backed out. The beam of the headlight slid across the living room wall and was gone. She made her decision. Morning came with the slow light Sarah loved. I brewed coffee and wrote my statement before I touched the mug. Dates, times, names, plain facts with a steady hand. I printed it and folded it with the program and the receipts. The napkin went in the trash. I let it go. Maya texted, "Office raid, early. Phones, cards, ledgers, back closet full of blanks." He had not even tried to be clever. He had only tried to be quick. The detective called an hour later. "We have enough," he said. "He'll be arraigned Monday." "Good," I said. "Your daughter?" "She has a choice," I said. "We all do." I sat at my desk and opened the drawer that held Sarah's blue stationery. I wrote a letter to my granddaughter in neat block letters she could read when she was older. I told her about saving and about calling things by their right names. I told her I would help with school when the time came, but not with lies. I told her she could always ring my bell, and I would always open the door. I put the letter in an envelope and wrote, "For your 18th birthday" on the front. Then I called my lawyer and changed my will. Not punishment. Clarity. A trust for my granddaughter tied to good grades and honest work. A modest bequest for a charity Sarah had circled in a church bulletin years ago and never sent because we were counting coins in a jelly jar. I could hear her laugh when I told her I had finally done it. It sounded like the old kitchen on a Sunday morning. I hung up and walked to the closet. I hung the coat on its hook. I smoothed the sleeve where the machine oil stain had lived for years. I left it. The house was quiet. The kind of quiet that did not push. It felt like a room waiting for music, but not needing it. I stood by the window with the coffee that had cooled and tasted it anyway. It tasted like a decision. I thought of Caroline's face on the porch, the way she had stood with her hands on the rail like a child about to cross a street. I hoped she would cross it. I hoped she would not run back to the man who had taught her to steal in clean words. The doorbell did not ring. The phone did not buzz. The silence did not bite. It held. I picked up the envelope for my granddaughter and set it in the desk where I knew I would not forget it. I slid the revised will into the file that mattered and closed the drawer. Truth and legacy had been bent. They were not broken. Now on my duty. I had set them straight enough for now. I kept my name. If justice cost you your place at the table, would you sit anyway, or stand where your dignity stands? Share your point of view in the comments.
My grandpa's words really happened. I believe him. If you want more true tales stories like this, hit subscribe.